So, The Way of Kings, is it any good? Yes, it's very good. See you next video. Now, memes aside, this is a really, really good book. I would say this is the best book Brandon Sanderson's written, and I've actually read all of Cosmere. I'm just rereading it now, so I have some context for that statement. But yeah, I think this is the best book Brandon Sanderson's ever written. So the this book is sort of split into two main sort of sections. You've got your or I guess you could say for so you've got your spoilers, by the way, lots of spoilers everywhere. So you've got your Shalon section, and then you've got your Dalinar and Adolin section, and then you've got your Kaladin section. And arguably, the Dalinar and Adolin and Kaladin they're sort of coming to the same thing. But yeah, so this book is very, very good. And so but the way I'm going to review it is I'm going to sort of talk about each of the sections, of those three, and then sort of give you an idea, because they are treated relatively separately. Specifically, the Shalon stuff is quite separate from everything else. So first of all, let's get the bad out of the way. The Shalon stuff, I'm not a huge fan of. It's not bad, it's not terrible, but the thing is that when you put it relative to the really, really good stuff that's happening, out in the Shattered Plains, if you will, it just doesn't look so good. Like, if that was a book in of itself, just New Author just wrote this book and it just was the Shalon chapters, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. It's not bad at all, even. But just when it's being put, with stuff that's so good, and so it makes you just sort of annoyed, because every time you're waiting for more good Kaladin chapters or whatever, you just get a Shalon chapter and you're like, eh. So it's not bad. If we're busting out the out of 10s, it's like a 7 out of 10. Okay. So, and just the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of it is there's not a lot going on, and it doesn't feel very related to the rest of the story. And it just feels very personal, but to a character that you don't really have a lot of commitment to. And I know this is just me. This is just a personal opinion. But yeah, that's just my personal thoughts. I wasn't a huge fan of Shalon stuff. And like I said, it just took you out of a story. Have you ever seen The Two Towers? And there's the scene, with Helm's Deep's going down, and it's like awesome. And then it just keeps cutting to random scenes of the Ents in the middle of Helm's Deep, and you're like, bro, I want to see Helm's Deep. I'm not here for the Ents, It's a little bit how I feel. I mean, that's a bit exaggerated, because the Ents are terrible, whereas Shalon's not terrible. But yeah. So now if we move on to the if we move on to the Kaladin stuff, I think this is really the heart of the story. This is like I don't want to call it a redemption arc, because it's not like the character did anything bad. He just sort of was in I'm not sure what the term for it is, but he's just in a rut. He's not having a good time. He's a slave. And this is a real strength of the book. This is really cool. So you see him, making his way up, becoming who he wants to be, and also who he arguably is meant to be, if that's the way you think. It's a little bit it's actually quite well done, because it's not like a linear journey. He has his own sort of pitfalls. Like, you think, oh yeah, we've got somewhere, but then he sort of regresses and goes back to his old sort of depressed self for a bit, and then he manages to get out of his shell again, and think about new stuff. And I reckon it's quite realistic, because I don't think that anybody just sort of is on a linear journey to any sort of greatness. There's always going to be pitfalls and stuff that brings you back, and it'll cause you to regress, but that doesn't mean that you're not still on the journey, So I thought this was really, really powerful stuff, and also just well written, interesting characters, interesting, I'd say quite realistic character motivations as he wins over the squad, if you will. It's just really, really cool, and it's also just satisfying as well, because you're like, the situation you're in to begin with is just so bad that you're just happy that it gets resolved. And then of course we have the final section, the Adolin and Dalinar stuff, which I think is also just really good. You get to know this character of Dalinar sort of from two perspectives. You get to see him as he sees himself, and then you get to see him as someone who loves him sees him. And it's just this a really interesting idea of, is he crazy, is he not? And then you can see, and neither side is wrong, because Dalinar's he trusts his visions and he thinks he's right, and that's fair, because his visions are pretty realistic, but then Adolin's like, oh my god, my dad's just fucking going crazy, this is terrible, which is also a fair enough perspective when, your dad starts getting visions. And it's just really well done. It's some really interesting character drama, but it's a little bit different to the Shalon stuff, because it directly affects what's happening in the rest of the story, directly affects what's happening to Kaladin. So it's a little better in that regard. But also, I just find the characters of Adolin and Dalinar more interesting than I found Shalon, so that's why I would, give it a higher rating. Oh god, I forgot about that at 10. So I'd say that the Kaladin stuff is 9 out of 10, and the Adolin and Dalinar stuff is a 8 out of 10. It's really well done. It's really interesting, and this also gives you some nice in this section. You get some nice political drama as well, which is cool. You haven't seen that a lot in Brandon Sanderson stuff. Interesting political drama. There's a little bit of political drama in the Mistborn series, which is not so interesting. This is actually cool, interesting political drama with direct and severe ramifications immediately. So that's really cool. So now, if we just sort of discuss the book as a whole, because it sort of comes together at the end with Adolin and Dalinar's story meets with Kaladin's story, and it's just amazing. The end of the book is like the last. I listened to the audiobook on this one, so the last 2 hours of the audiobook is just some of the best stuff that I've ever read/listened to. It's just really, really cool how the stories come together at the end. I will say though that it was a little bit hurt by the Helm's Deep and the Ents problem I was mentioning earlier. Where it's so good that at the end, if there's a Shalon chapter, you just want to skip it. But yeah, a really cool end to the book, and of course it sets up the sequel, which is I'm listening to at the moment, which is also really good. So yeah, Way of Kings, is it good? Yes. Read it, listen to it. Yeah, those are the only two. I was trying to figure out other ways you can consume a book, but yeah, read it, listen to it, and have a great time. See you guys next time.